Now, I'm not one to gossip, but I will bring you the tea. Welcome to Chronicle Speaks. While I'm trying not to Tim Norman you or sweetie pies you to death, unfortunately, there's no other coverage. Court TV, CNN, no one but YouTubers are really covering this case. So if we don't cover it, you won't know what's going on. The saying goes, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And unfortunately, the weakest link for the prosecution seems to be their star witness, Tre'vell Anthony Hill, who also happens to be the shooter. I told y'all before, the day of the murder, he admitted to popping a Molly and was sweating. Also, he admitted to being on ecstasy. Now we find out he's a meth head. I always told y'all little Tink Tink looked a little slow, but that's because he was high. Oh, baby, but wait a minute, there's more. Not only that, Tim's attorneys have found out that although prosecution was telling them that the star witness received absolutely nothing for his testimony, Tre'vell got locked up 21 months ago for possession of meth, but guess what? Those charges mysteriously disappeared. Then Tre'vell comes out ready to testify against Tim, and he's the star witness. Only that, y'all, Chris Carroll, Tim's ex-bunkie in the Pokey, and also the guy that picked him up from the airport the day of the murder, also one of the ex-managers at Sweetie Pies, has been giving witness statement to the prosecution that Tim was the one that actually had someone break into Miss Robbie's home. Tim's attorneys are like, no, throw it out. Y'all, it is so much going on. Court TV, CNN, all of y'all are missing out. This story is so freaking crazy. I can't even make this stuff up. Y'all, before we get into all of this madness, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any of this tea. Now let's get back into it. So the trial for Tim Norman starts Tuesday. That's September 6th. And baby, let me tell you, I recently sat down and watched all 5 seasons because I want to truly know all parts of every story I touch. And baby, let me tell you, I've been over here crying like a baby, seeing parts like this.
Hey, why we at a Chinese place?
I like Chinese food. You don't like Chinese food? I'm your cousin. I wouldn't set you up, man. Come on. I love you a little bit too much. Family wouldn't do that to each other.
And then seeing parts like this.
At night, I lay up and wonder, who could have killed this boy? Who could have killed him and for what? I'm not as strong as people think I am, but as I get older, I know I have to accept things that I can't change.
All I'm saying is that going back and watching those episodes after now I know what already happened, it hits a little different. Justice for Andre is all I'm saying. It took all of these years to finally get close to a resolution, and I would like to see justice prevail. So let's get into the star witness, Lil Tink Tink, Mr. Tre'vell Anthony Hill. His testimony seems to be falling apart before he even takes the stand. Prosecution held on to the Giglio information until what Tim's attorneys are calling the final hour. According to Tim's attorneys, the prosecution released information to the defendant and his attorneys on August 26th, which was 10 days before trial. In that information, they said that the shooter, Tre'vell Anthony Hill, popped a Molly and took an ecstasy the day of the murder. Tim's attorney said, no, not so fast. We need all documentation. We need videos of the testimony. We need audio. We need the transcript. We need everything because something is missing. They knew something was fishy. Well, yesterday they said, okay, we will give you some material that we didn't give you before. They uploaded a document called Lab Report. And in that document, it's noted that 21 months ago, a laboratory confirmed that Tre'vell Anthony Hill was holding on to a substance, and that substance was meth. Let me just read it to you because I can't make this up. Defendant Tim Norman, by and through his undersigned attorneys, respectfully moves this court for an entry of order, dismissing all charges against Mr. Norman. Hell no. Compelling the government to immediately produce to Mr. Norman and his counsel all notes, documents, and internal and external communication regarding Tre'vell Anthony Hill's drug use, including with respect to meth, his violation of federal narcotics law for meth, and the government's agreement and decision not to prosecute Hill for his violation of federal narcotics laws for meth, including but not limited to all communication with Mr. Hill's lawyers, and or in the alternative, if a trial is to go forward, for the communication of the trial until after an evidentiary hearing is held on these issues where the government's representatives and Hill can be examined under oath, and after Mr. Norman and his counsel can retain an expert with respect to these issues, and states as follows. The games continue at the expense of Mr. Norman's rights and he and his counsel's ability to legitimately prepare for trial. It was revealed late Wednesday afternoon, August 31st, 2022, for the very first time that for some 21 months, the government has been intentionally sitting on and tactically and intentionally failing to produce to Mr. Norman and his counsel what can only be described as bombshell, Grady, and Giglio material. It is no coincidence that the government is only now producing these materials. The government was forced to do so after Mr. Norman's counsel filed earlier this week a motion based upon the government's intentional and tactical failure and refusal to produce Brady and Giglio material regarding Hill's extensive drug usage. Never good when your star witness is a druggie. But let me continue. At the time of the filing of the motion earlier this week, Mr. Norman and his counsel had just learned for the very first time, and by way of the government's August 26, 2022 production, that Hill had an extensive history of serious drug usage, including on the date of the murder that he committed, even though the government fully intended to have Hill recall specific conversation he claimed to have had the same day while heavily intoxicated by drugs. However, at that time, Mr. Norman and his lawyers still knew nothing of Hill's arrest in connection with violation of federal narcotics laws for meth 21 months ago, or of the government's agreement not to prosecute Hill for those violations of federal narcotic laws. Here, in the late hours of Wednesday, August 31st, 2022, the government casually notified Mr. Norman's counsel that it had uploaded some additional discovery materials for defense counsel's review. Even then, the file name, lab report, that it uploaded was entirely misleading. The contents of the file actually contained page after page relating to Hill's being taken into custody, including in connection with his violation of federal narcotics laws. In other words, lab report did not accurately describe what was actually being produced. This August 31st, 2022 production was not just any ordinary discovery. This was discovery that revealed for the very first time that the government's star witness Hill had been arrested and taken into custody, including in connection with Hill's violation of federal narcotics laws for meth some 21 months ago. That Mr. Hill was in possession of meth at that time, that the laboratory report confirmed that the substance possessed by Mr. Hill was indeed meth, and that apparently any prosecution for Hill's violation of federal narcotics laws has just gone away, even though the government had claimed to date that Mr. Hill had received absolutely nothing in exchange for his testimony in the case. The government even posed questions to Hill during his sworn grand jury testimony intentionally designed to elicit responses from Hill that he had not received and would not receive anything in exchange for his cooperation and testimony in this matter. Thus, it now appears that the government allowed or encouraged false or at least certainly misleading testimony to be provided before the grand jury. Prior to the afternoon hours of Wednesday, August 31st, 2022, it had only been known by Mr. Norman and his counsel, as revealed for the very first time only earlier this week by the government and others similarly intentionally withheld discovery materials, that Hill had a serious drug problem arising out of his use of ecstasy. Now it appears that what was just the tip of the iceberg, apparently Hill was a serious user of meth during the time period at issue. I'm gonna stop the document right there, but obviously you get the gist. They are saying that this man is a meth head, an ecstasy head, and he pops mollies, and he is not credible. Tim's attorneys are saying that the prosecution intentionally withheld this information, knowing that it wasn't Giglio material and should have been given to Tim's attorneys way ahead of time, and because it was only given 10 days prior and this meth information was given less than 6 days prior, they don't have enough time to get a star witness, i.e. some type of doctor, previous meth head, a coke head, a crack head, or anybody that can say he is not credible, especially if he was doing molly, ecstasy, and possibly coke the day of the murder. Travell Anthony Hill taking the stand is going to be very tricky. Being that he was an ex-druggie, we know he can't pop pills and get mollies now. Travell has admitted to taking molly and ecstasy the day of the murder, and it could be possibly meth now. It's going to be very hard for him to even prove what Tim told him on that day without any text messages, without any voice messages, or any other proof. The only other thing that they can possibly prove is that Travell was paid by someone. That person that paid him admits that Tim gave him the money to give to Travell to have the murder of Andre committed. I need my attorneys and my legal eagles to get in the comments because I got some questions for y'all. Now let's get into the information about Tim's ex-friend, Mr. Chris Carroll, who used to manage one of the Sweetie Pies and also was Tim's bunkie in the Pokey. It says defendant James Timothy Norman, by and through his undersigned attorneys, respectfully move this court in limine for the entry of an order barring the government from eliciting certain testimony from Chris Carroll, and states as follows. Carroll worked at and managed one or more of the Sweetie Pies restaurants. Consistent with defendant's other motions in limine, the government should be barred from eliciting any testimony from Carroll at the trial regarding how he met Mr. Norman and where. This is entirely irrelevant and should be barred on that basis alone. Y'all remember Carroll met Tim when he was locked up those 10 years, long time ago, and bringing up Chris Carroll will have to remind or let the jury know that Tim was locked up previously, and they really don't want to put that in the jury's mind. Furthermore, any conceivable minimum relevance is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice and juror confusion because such evidence would only be offered to paint Mr. Norman as a bad guy or as one who was formerly incarcerated or convicted of an offense that had absolutely nothing to do with this present case. Thus, any such evidence should be barred under Rule 403. Any such evidence should also be barred under Rule 404B. In addition, the government should be specifically advised that it is to admonish Carroll that he is not to reference any such facts gratuitously or otherwise during his trial testimony. In addition, the government should be barred from introducing through Carroll at trial any testimony that Mr. Norman hung out with shady characters or thugs. This evidence too is entirely irrelevant. Moreover, in the first instance, Carroll has no foundation to make such assertions about these individuals. Further, any conceivable minimal relevance is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice and juror confusion and should be barred under Rule 403. Let's skip around some because I honestly think some of the evidence that they are bringing from Mr. Carroll isn't really needed in this case, but let's get to this one. Number 6, the government should also be barred from eliciting any testimony at trial from Carroll that he ever saw Mr. Norman with a gun. Any such evidence is entirely irrelevant and should be barred on that basis alone. Moreover, any such evidence should be barred under Rule 403 because any conceivable minimum relevance is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice and juror confusion. Again, that issue has nothing whatsoever to do with any issue the jury would be required to decide in this matter, and Mr. Norman is not alleged to be the shooter in this case. Any such evidence should also be barred under Rule 404B. The government should also be barred from introducing any testimony from Carroll regarding Carroll's speculation and opinions about whether Mr. Norman had any involvement in the robbery of Miss Robbie's residence. First, Carroll has no foundation for any such testimony, and it should be barred on that basis alone. Second, any such evidence is entirely irrelevant and should be barred on that further basis. Third, any such evidence should be barred under Rule 403 because any conceivable minimum relevance is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice and juror confusion. Again, that issue has nothing whatsoever to do with any issue that the jury will be required to decide in this matter. Fourth, any such evidence should be barred under Rule 404B. It sounds like Mr. Carroll has some information about some stuff, child. Wait, they're wanting all information that Chris Carroll has to give to be thrown out because he is trying to paint Tim as a bad guy, and Tim said he's just not that person. Baby, it's so many moving pieces. They have over 42 witnesses and over 10 hours of witness testimony to go over. I don't know who all Tim's trying to throw out, but they're pretty much denying everybody. They're saying they're not throwing out anybody. And as far as Tim's attorneys wanting the prosecution to throw out Travell Anthony Hill's statement, they're saying no. As set forth in the superseding indictment, co-defendant Travell Anthony Hill's involvement in the conspiracy to commit murder for hire effectively ended on March 16, 2016, when he accepted a $5,000 cash payment from defendant Norman through a third party for the commission of said murder. The arrest that happened in 2020, during which he was found in possession of approximately 5 grams of ecstasy, cannot realistically be said to prejudice defendant Norman. Who, y'all, it's a lot. It's a whole lot going on with these 42 witnesses. I don't know. I hope Travell ain't the smartest one out of the 42. I sure hope Travell ain't the smartest, because if he is, we are in for some trouble. Anyway, what I want y'all to do is tell me what you think about everything going on with this case. What do you think about Travell now being a meth head, a Molly popper, and an ecstasy popper, child? Also, what do you think about the methods that Tim's attorneys are taking to try to get Tim off? Do you think any of this is sticking? Leave a comment, and you know how we do. We'll talk about it down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that bell so you don't miss any of my new episodes.